Get out. This is not a place for you." The dry shout hit like a slap to the face. A middle-aged black man, wearing an ash-gray coat and shiny black leather shoes, was standing in front of the Sunvale Film Studio gate where the crew of White Tempest was filming. His name was Malcolm Reed, CEO of Lux Entertainment and also the main sponsor of the film project being shot at this studio. No one here knew him, and apparently, no one cared about a black man dressed so plainly. The tall security guard, in a tight black suit showing off his muscular build, wore gloves and thick sunglasses as if deliberately hiding his unfriendly eyes. He rested his hand on his hip, his voice low and gritted through his teeth. Clearly having lost patience long ago, I'll say it again. You have no business being in this area. Do you understand what I'm saying? Malcolm remained still. He didn't answer. He simply cast a calm gaze through the iron fence where high-powered lights illuminated the vibrant backstage area. Cameras followed each actor's step. The director yelled commands. The whole space was lively, professional, yet completely closed off to people like him. No one looked up to see him as a human being. Malcolm slowly pulled out a hard plastic card and held it forward. The guard glanced at it and scoffed, not even bothering to hide his disdain printed at home. Huh? What kind of card doesn't even have the production crew's logo? I could make a whole stack of this garbage. At that very moment, a voice crackled over his shoulder walkie-talkie. A sharp woman's voice. Charlotte reports a black guy staring at the actress. That type shouldn't be around here. Get rid of him. The guard cut the walkie-talkie off, nodding like his suspicions had just been confirmed. He looked at Malcolm with the eyes of someone who had caught a trespasser. You hear that, Leave? Now! Or I'll call the police from inside the studio. A small electric golf cart sped out. Sitting in the front was a blonde woman with wavy hair, sharply made-up face, and cold eyes. She was the female lead, a long white dress with a square neckline hugging her body. Flawless appearance, but an attitude as cold as metal. The moment she saw Malcolm, she recoiled as if seeing a venomous snake. Her shrill voice rang out, dramatic like a live performance. Why is he still standing there? I already said that. Strangers staring at me make me feel unsafe. The guard straightened, face darkening as if awaiting orders. And at that moment, Charlotte Gibbons appeared. Her sunglasses slid down her nose, ash-colored hair tied up high. She wore a black jumpsuit, long legs, heels clicking decisively on the cement ground. Charlotte, the film's director, producer, and the one who held absolute power on set. She stepped forward, her voice firm. Who are you? Who gave you permission to stand here? I just wanted to observe the shoot, Malcolm replied, his voice low, calm, not defensive, but not weak. Charlotte looked him up and down. Simple suit, no badge, no companion, no familiar face. Do you have a permit? Anyone to confirm you? No. Then I'm sorry, no one invited you. Then she turned to the guard. Handle it. Wait, I have... Malcolm raised the card again, this time his hand trembling, not out of fear, but out of hopelessness. The two guards stepped closer, voices heavy as stone. No one wants trouble here. You're making everyone uncomfortable. Behind the gate, crew members began to gather. Some pulled out phones to take pictures, some recorded videos, some whispered, Does he think he's the first black director or something? Look at him. Seems familiar. Maybe caused trouble somewhere. That look in his eyes? It's scary. Malcolm swallowed hard. He knew that look well. He had seen it all his life. Walking past wealthy streets, entering liquor stores, going to interviews at top firms before getting an Ivy League degree. It was a look that required no proof, no name asked, just one reason because he was that kind of person, looked that way, showing up in a place not meant for him. Charlotte exhaled, brushing past Malcolm like he was a blot on a pristine page. Please, she said, turning her back to walk away, don't ruin other people's artistic space. The space fell silent. Malcolm stood there, alone, in a silence like a courtroom that required no evidence. The steel gate closed behind him. Snickers, pitying, fake glances. And behind it was a world he thought he had earned the right to step into, but was denied because of this skin color. The press conference was held at the most luxurious hall of the Beverly Prime Hotel. High ceilings, dazzling crystal chandeliers, and a stage built like a major award ceremony. Red carpet. TV balcony, Major media reporters packed both sides of the auditorium. Malcolm Reed arrived on time. He wore a classic black suit, a white shirt without a tie, and shiny leather shoes. Everything neat, fitted, not a single detail excessive. But somehow, people still looked at him as if he had broken the dress code, perhaps because what he wore wasn't from a famous brand that could be easily recognized. As he stepped into the hall, Malcolm could clearly feel the shift in the atmosphere. The conversations around him abruptly stopped, then resumed, but in a lower tone, eyes still glancing in his direction. A couple whispered, "Who is that guy?" "No idea, but just look at how he's dressed. Definitely not a director, maybe a logistics manager, a bit overdressed for that role." Malcolm quietly walked past them, without responding, without turning back. He moved toward the seating area, third row, center, a nice seat, but easily scrutinized. He noticed it immediately. This was intentional, a position close enough to see him clearly, but far enough not to be considered central. As he sat down, he felt the gaze of the two women beside him. One curled her lip, the other covered her mouth, whispering clearly, thought he was someone important. Turns out no name tag. Strange. Not just anyone can sit here. The man in front even turned around to ask, "Are you with the PR team?" "Got a ticket from a friend," Malcolm didn't answer. He simply gave a polite smile. But in his eyes, a layer of ice was forming, cold, thick, and still, on stage. The MC excitedly announced, "Will now begin the appreciation ceremony, honoring those behind the resounding success of White Tempest, the great sponsors." The people who believed in the creative vision, applause rang out. Charlotte Gibbons walked out, full of pride. She wore a white suit, her hair in a high bun, her face sharply made up. Beside her was the female lead, thigh-slit dress, voluminous curls, standing like she was ready for a fashion magazine cover. Charlotte held the microphone. "I've always believed that if you wanted to create something extraordinary, you need extraordinary companions. And luckily, I had them. People who invested without demanding to be taught how to make films." A soft round of laughter followed. Charlotte glanced at Malcolm for just a beat, short enough to leave no trace, but long enough for him to understand she was talking about him. "We appreciate everyone, whether it's a director or simply someone who writes checks and stays out of the way." This time, the audience laughed louder. Someone beside Malcolm commented, "Guess she's talking about those fancy investors." "Huh. Yeah, they throw in cash just to sit in VIP. Who dares interfere with Hollywood art?" Malcolm remained silent, but his back straightened, his hand on his thigh slightly tensed, a reaction no one could see, but inside, he was tightening layer by layer of patience. The MC continued, "And now, the moment everyone's been waiting for, the very first trailer of White Tempest, the official version. Overseen by director Charlotte Gibbons, the giant LED screen lit up. Majestic sound, smooth visuals. The female lead ran through snowstorms, fired guns, screamed about freedom, feminism, defying prejudice." The audience below murmured in awe. Malcolm didn't watch the middle part. He waited for the final credits. Black screen, white text appearing line by line. Produced by Ardent Pictures director Charlotte Gibbons, lead actress Helena St. Clair, sponsors. Not a single line mentioning Malcolm's company. No Lux Entertainment. No line co-sponsored by... Nothing at all. Malcolm leaned slightly forward toward the screen as if he couldn't believe his eyes. His gaze paused at each name as if searching for himself in the crowd. But that name did not exist. He stood up abruptly. The chair let out a sharp clack in the elegant hall. All eyes instantly turned toward him, but no one was expecting a speech. No one clapped in welcome. They looked at him as if waiting, to see how a man stripped of his honor would react before a crowd. "I have a question," Malcolm's voice rang out, calm but full of steel. "Why isn't the founding investor's name listed in the credits?" A beat of silence. No one answered, only the faint hiss of an open mic. Charlotte, sitting in the front row in an elegant white dress, slightly raised an eyebrow. Her face froze for a moment, as if some memory had leapt from the shadows. A flicker of recognition. He was the man kicked off the set last time, the one she had scolded for bothering the actress, but Charlotte took only half a second to cover her shock with a sneering smile. "Oh, maybe a frame got accidentally cut in the final version. Post-production's been overloaded. You all know how it is." She swept her gaze around the hall. then shrugged. Anyway, everyone understands that true investors are the ones who understand art, not those who just throw money and disappear. Soft laughter rippled through the room. A few laughed louder, unclear whether because of her joke or because they already knew exactly who was being implied. The MC interjected, voice laced with deliberate surprise. Actually, I was a bit shocked myself. Who would have thought a black man could sponsor up to $100 million for this film? Truly a miracle, haha. The whole room burst into laughter. No one reached for Malcolm's hand. No one objected. Only laughter. A collective slap. A vanishing act for all his efforts done by mocking his very existence. Malcolm stood still. He only looked straight into Charlotte's eyes. She looked away. As if she stared for more than a second, she would have to admit she owed him more than just an apology. Malcolm gave a slight nod, then he turned and walked away, each step heavy, but his back still straight, and behind him, the film's trailer played again, music swelling, applause erupting, as if he had never been there. Just as he entered the elevator, a young man hurried after him, panting, "Mr. Reed, I'm part of the film's secondary legal team. I just checked again. The company name in the copyright contract. It's not Lux." Malcolm turned to face him. His voice dropped low, steady, and clear. "Send me all the original data, and don't let anyone know you spoke to me." The elevator light flickered once. Malcolm stepped inside. The doors closed and silence began to turn dangerous. 3 days after the press conference, Malcolm Reed woke up to a strange spam message on his phone. "Don't get arrested for the way you look at people. They say you like staring at women. A black man trying to speak up, know your place." He opened Instagram. Over 3,000 new comments. Among them, hundreds of private messages attached with screenshots, a zoomed-in image from a backstage camera. Malcolm standing near the lead actress at the studio gate, his eyes looking in her direction. Right at the moment she screamed, "Why is he still looking at me?" The image was cut at the perfect second, captioned with "Black fanboy invading the personal space of a famous actress." Social media started to erupt, but not to seek justice for him. Instead, to tear him apart, twist the narrative, and smear his name. A top entertainment outlet ran the headline, "White Tempest lead actress followed by unidentified man on set. Motives unknown." In the comment section, someone wrote, "Looks like a failed investor trying to get close to artists for attention. He doesn't even have a verified account. Definitely faking being a sponsor." Malcolm sat in the boardroom. In front of him were 3 shareholders from the Luxura Council. "Malcolm, you have to understand," an older man with silver hair began. "Our brand is caught in the middle of a media crisis. Whether it's true or not, we think it's best to pull out of this project to avoid further damage." Malcolm nodded, very slowly. He wasn't angry, just his eyes seemed a little deeper than usual. That evening, Malcolm sat alone in his penthouse, staring at the computer screen. In the electronic contract, the IP ownership terms section now clearly read, "Ardent Pictures holds exclusive rights to creative and distribution control, regardless of initial investment proportion." That was not what he had signed. He opened his file cabinet. No hard copy. When he checked the internal email that sent the originally signed contract, he discovered the attachment had been replaced with a different version. Same file name, same size, but completely different content. Last modified 2 days after his signature. Malcolm stood up, walked to the corner of the room where a small safe was bolted into the floor. Code 081944. He opened the safe. Inside, only one item of black. Lead-wrapped USB stick. Unmarked. He grabbed it, squinting as the ceiling light reflected off its cold surface. "All right," he whispered. He plugged the USB into his computer. A single file appeared. White Tempest, cut version 0.1. Raw camera footage. He double-clicked. The screen lit up, and in frame, Charlotte Gibbons was speaking privately with the lead actress backstage. Unaware the camera had already started rolling, "It's fine. Just pretend to feel a bit threatened. The media will take care of the rest. You believe he's an investor? Doesn't matter. Just act." Malcolm paused the video at 0037. His eyes were no longer silent. They were planning. Day 21 of peak production. The exterior set in Nevada was tense like a wire pulled tight. The snow battle scene, dubbed the Soul of White Tempest, was about to be filmed. 4 red helium cameras, 2 crane rigs, the pyrotechnic team had already embedded explosives beneath the artificial snow. The intercom buzzed, camera A, checked. Backlight, on standby. Camera C, countdown. Wait, an assistant shouted. The tech crew froze. From the control cabin. A red alert equipment subscription lost signal. Post-production data server inaccessible. 10 minutes later. The lighting rental company, Omicron FX, showed up on set, demanding immediate retrieval of all rented gear. Reason funding from the guarantor Lux Entertainment had suddenly been frozen. On the field. Director Charlotte screamed furiously, "What the hell is going on? We paid in advance." The Omicron representative pulled out the contract, pointing to a bold line: all Q2 rental costs are contingent upon continuous financial backing from Lux. The current payment account for this quarter has been disabled. Charlotte yelled at her assistant, "Call the bank." "Call legal call." The comms director call Miss Charlotte. Someone from the production team interrupted, handing her a phone. "You need to see this. Right now." The screen showed a video going viral online. A leaked, unpolished cut of White Tempest, posted on Twitter/X and Reddit in under an hour. In the video, the lead actress, in a forgotten backstage moment, stood in the dressing room, on a call with her girlfriend. That new director, the white guy, super easy to manipulate, but that weird black dude who kept staring at me gave me the creeps. Art's just a staged drama to get famous. Comments exploded, talking about prejudice while being racist yourself. Charlotte directed that scene and didn't catch it. No wonder the first investor disappeared from the credits. Hashtag Cancel White Tempest started trending. Charlotte immediately went live on internal media, wearing a black dress, rushed makeup, behind her a plain backdrop to avoid distractions. She kept a composed face. That video was clearly edited. Our lead actress has never exhibited racist behavior. Whoever's behind this is trying to sabotage the project for personal motives. I'm a filmmaker. I'm not involved in finance or contracts. The moment she finished speaking, an anonymous account named @Vault49 dropped another video. It was footage from the script meeting taken from Malcolm's raw cut archive. In it, Charlotte was speaking with the assistant director and the lead actress, her face calm, her tone mocking. He really thinks investing is enough to have his name in every credit who has time to check real ownership anyway. Laughter followed. Then she added, "As long as his name's not on it, everyone will think this was all my work." Social media exploded. Major news outlets began to change their tone. Articles that once honored the investor now turned into intense backlash against the White Tempest team after shocking leaks. The same names that once laughed at Malcolm now began to go silent. In the 38th floor office, Malcolm sat in front of his laptop screen. On it were countless folders of documents and recordings. He opened his email, typed in the recipient a legal authority, subject line request for investigation of copyright infringement and contractual fraud, with a short note. The game is over. Day 3 after the Set Freeze incident. The media received a surprise invitation emergency press conference regarding legal and financial ownership of the White Tempest project. Time 14:00, Monarch Plaza Hotel, Los Angeles. Organizer Malcolm Reed. No one expected much. Most journalists showed up out of curiosity. What's that black guy who got kicked off the set going to say? Now the hall doors opened. Cameras were raised, eyes filled with doubt, flashbulbs, whispers, probably just trying to defend himself for being left out of the credits. Is he trying to get his name back on the sponsor list or something? Malcolm stepped onto the stage. No grand props, just a simple podium, an LED screen behind him, and a prepared folder. He wore a dark gray suit, charcoal tie, neat, elegant, not a wrinkle in sight. His voice was deep, clear, not angry but sharp like a razor. "Good afternoon. My name is Malcolm Reed, and I am the principal shareholder, holding 51% IP ownership of White Tempest. I'm not saying this to take credit. I'm saying it because it's time someone took responsibility for what's happening." The room stirred. Malcolm pressed a remote control. The screen behind him displayed a series of emails exchanged between him and Charlotte, from the earliest stages of the project, including his suggestion for the film's title, the development funding he provided, and the contractual clause stating credits cannot be altered without mutual agreement. Email 1. Charlotte sent me at 11:12 p.m. on March 3rd. "Don't worry, I will protect your rights to the end. You're the one who laid the foundation for this piece." Email 2. 2 weeks later. The tone changes. I think the media might not respond well to a profile that's too complicated. The audience will be confused if there's an investor they don't recognize. A gasp rippled through the audience. And this... Malcolm plugged a USB into the projector. Is a recording from an internal meeting 3 months ago. Charlotte's voice played from the speakers. We need to keep it clean. No unfamiliar names. And someone go check the entire credits list for me. Erase everything unnecessary. Before anyone could react, a hand rose at the back of the room. It was a young man in a white shirt with a name tag that read Post-Production Assistant. My name is Kevin. I was an assistant editor on the project. He stepped to the mic. Voice shaking but firm, I was instructed by Director Gibbons to remove all credits related to Lux Entertainment and change the sponsor name to Ardent Pictures. She told me, and I quote, "People only remember the director. No one remembers the guy with the wallet." She also sent me a private post-production bonus of $10,000 if I agreed never to speak of this again. The room erupted. Cameras spun wildly. Reporters shouted, "Do you have proof? Any audio recordings? Where's the money?" Kevin raised his phone and opened his banking app. On the screen, a transaction marked Consultation Bonus, CG. Malcolm stepped back to the microphone. His voice still calm. I've stayed silent for too long, but I no longer have any obligation to protect a lie. He opened his leather briefcase and pulled out a thick stack of papers, black cover, red edges. This is the original contract, the version personally signed by Charlotte Gibbons, the one she claimed didn't exist. Was revised, or had a technical error. It even includes her original fingerprint, heat-sensitive ink, verified by a third party. Malcolm held the contract high, his eyes sweeping across the room, and if anyone still doubts it, then this is when we finally see who really created this film, and how it was distorted. The screen behind him went black. A video began to play. Charlotte, drinking at a rap party, laughing loudly, said to a co-star, "I control everything. He thinks signing a contract means getting into the film, ha ha ha." Idiot. News from Malcolm Reed's press conference spread across every major outlet and social platform like a bomb detonating in the center of Hollywood. Within 24 hours, the entire entertainment industry was shaken by the quake. The global entertainment investment firm Miravox Capital, which had funded 5 consecutive projects by Charlotte Gibbons, announced the termination of all current contracts and the end of any future partnerships. On their official account, Miravox wrote, "We do not tolerate abuse of power, financial manipulation, or discrimination in any form." Just hours later, a wave of sponsors pulled out of White Tempest Cosmetics brand Lunay, electric car company Orbit, and theater chain Vista Cine all publicly ceased promotional efforts and deleted all campaigns involving lead actress Helena St. Clair. Helena's social media, once filled with glamorous images, was now flooded with angry emojis. An old behind-the-scenes clip resurfaced unexpectedly in which she shouted at a cameraman, insulting the technical crew. "Without us, you're just a bunch of cable runners." The audience began calling her the arrogant queen. The hashtag had boycott. Helena hit the global top 5 trends. Meanwhile, Charlotte Gibbons refused all interviews. She deactivated all her social accounts, citing mental health to avoid media attention. However, a leaked message pushed the situation further into chaos. "Helena, did you see his eyes that day? He was terrifying." Charlotte, yeah, just stick to that. The public will eat it up if you say you felt threatened. Just 10 minutes after the messages appeared on an internal film forum, Lance Moore, Helena's ex-boyfriend and a B-list actor, uploaded a 7-minute selfie video. In it, he confirmed he had personally witnessed Charlotte orchestrating the creepy gaze incident on set. She told Helena that if she wanted to cut that black investor out of the project, she had to make people scared of him. No one questions anything when the word safety is repeated enough. The video went viral immediately. Charlotte had no way out. The media began using phrases never before associated with her name: fraudulent director, queen of manipulation, fake visionary. The prestigious magazine Silver Frame announced it would remove Charlotte from its Breakthrough Director of the Year shortlist. 2 feminist organizations previously funded by her issued statements cutting all ties. But that wasn't the final blow. The next morning, Malcolm Reed quietly arrived at the office of the Federal Financial Audit Bureau. In his hands was a nearly 300-page dossier, fully notarized. Contents detailed evidence of Charlotte and her team misappropriating over $4 $2 million from a public fund supporting independent artists. Covertly transferred into personal accounts under shell companies. Malcolm gave no interviews as he exited the building. He said only one sentence: "The law will do the talking. I don't need to say any more." On Twitter, a simple tweet from Malcolm's secondary account became a symbol of victory. Every mask has its day to peel off behind the stage lights, one by one. People began to distance themselves from the name Charlotte Gibbons as if she were a contagious disease. Those who once mocked Malcolm now could only bow their heads in silence. But for Malcolm, this was not the end. It was only the surface being cleansed. In a law firm office in Los Angeles, a federal agent flipped through the dossier for Malcolm, then frowned. If these numbers are accurate, this isn't just a civil violation, this is federal fraud. And we're opening a criminal investigation immediately. And just at that moment, outside the building, a TV reporter unintentionally muttered into a live mic, "Unbelievable, a black man shaking all of Hollywood with just a few files. Maybe it's just luck." Malcolm heard it. He didn't look back, but for the first time in years, he realized that even victory wasn't enough to erase the way people saw his skin. Making a deal with a black man is like smearing ink all over your own film. That venomous line, spoken with Charlotte's voice full of disdain, echoed in a closed-door meeting, but no one expected it had been recorded. And now, Malcolm was the one to release that recording to the public. The next day, every major TV network aired the audio clip. At an emergency meeting table with Charlotte and her PR executives, Charlotte slammed her hand on the table. Delete everything. Who authorized the leak? The communications director. Pale-faced, it's too late. Hashtag not burn. The Queen is trending #1 on Twitter. Investors are pulling out. Netflix has taken down the trailer of her starring project. Charlotte flew into a rage. She turned to Aaron, her former right-hand woman. "You, tell me, was it you who betrayed me?" Aaron scoffed. "No need to betray you. You destroyed yourself." At the same time, during an emergency press conference, Malcolm appeared alongside Lawrence Denton, the veteran attorney who once engineered Charlotte's legal victories. Cameras flashed non-stop. Lawrence placed a thick file on the podium. "Lawrence, I remain silent for the sake of reputation. But today, I stand here for justice. This is full evidence that Charlotte used her company as a front to launder money, bribe directors for awards, and discriminate against minorities in the hiring process." Malcolm stepped up to the mic, speaking slowly. "Charlotte didn't just defame me. She insulted every black person who ever believed they had a fair chance in this industry." A reporter asked, "Do you know where she is now?" Mr. Reed Malcolm smirked. "I do. And I believe everyone will see her. Very clearly. Very soon." 9:00 p.m. Charlotte entered the studio of the talk show The Prime Table. She wore a white suit, smiling confidently. The spotlight made her glow like a queen stepping onto stage after a scandal. She believed she could rebuild her image with a few half-hearted apologies and a tearful story, but Malcolm had already played a different move. Just as the show began, the director of the program received an emergency order from the FBI. The cameras didn't stop. It was a nationwide live broadcast. The host received a note from backstage. His face drained of color, but he had to read it. "Ladies and gentlemen, according to the Department of Justice, as of this moment, Charlotte Gibbons is officially indicted on the following charges: money laundering, federal-level financial fraud, and systemic racial discrimination in the workplace." The audience in the studio fell silent. The camera zoomed in on Charlotte. She opened her mouth to respond, but her lips trembled. No words came out. The host continued, his voice cold. "We've been instructed to preserve this footage as legal evidence. Charlotte Gibbons, do you have anything to say to the public?" Charlotte gasped for breath. She looked around, searching for support, but no one was there. No Aaron, no Lawrence, no one. From the backstage monitor, Malcolm's voice came through the director's headset. "Let her feel what it's like to have an entire system turn against her. The way I did, 10 years ago." The backstage doors opened. 2 federal agents stepped onto the set. Charlotte lashed out, screaming, "I didn't do anything. You'll regret smearing my name. I built this whole industry." One agent leaned in and whispered, "And because you built it, you'll be the first to fall." The final shot, Charlotte in handcuffs, framed directly in front of the live camera. Late at night, after Charlotte's televised execution, Malcolm sat alone in his office, the glow of the screen flickering across his tense face. Ding! A new email appeared. The sender's address was encrypted, untraceable. Subject Charlotte was just a pawn. The real player remains in the shadows, attached a sponsorship contract worth 280 million USD, bearing the signature of a global conglomerate, Orion Global Fund. Malcolm opened the document, and his heartbeat seemed to slow for a moment. The final signature on the sponsorship agreement, Felix Warner, CEO of Orion Global Fund, the man who had once been Malcolm's mentor at the beginning of his career. Also Charlotte's mentor, a powerful white man, known for his friendly face, soft-spoken demeanor, and a spotless public image for over 20 years. The next day, at a venture capital summit in New York, Felix took the stage and spoke calmly, as if nothing had happened. The room was filled with tycoons and financiers. When Malcolm entered, a wave of whispers swept through the audience. Malcolm walked straight toward Felix. No microphone, no announcement, just a direct confrontation. "Malcolm, so, you're the one who wrote the script for this whole show," Felix smirked, eyes steady and unwavering. "You're clever, Malcolm, but sometimes a beautiful structure needs to sacrifice a few cracked bricks." Malcolm replied, voice low but razor sharp, "And you think I'm the cracked brick? Or was it?" Charlotte Felix laughed. A powerful, patronizing laugh. "Charlotte was just the appetizer. You were the main course, but sadly, you didn't know you were chosen to fail from day one." Just a few hours after the encounter, a flood of headlines appeared. Malcolm Reed linked to illegal Orion funding. Black CEO turns the tables. But is his past clean-edited photos? Old financial reports? Even a deepfake AI video showing Malcolm signing a money laundering agreement went viral. All pointing toward a single narrative: Malcolm was no cleaner than Charlotte. Malcolm was dragged into a media swamp. Investors began to hesitate. Several partners announced temporary suspensions of collaboration. Those who once applauded now turned away in silence. But Malcolm was not afraid. He returned to his old apartment, the place where he was once cast out by society. On the wall was a map, pinned with red strings connecting relationships, money trails, reports. He removed an old envelope hidden behind a painting. Inside, a USB drive labeled "Use only when everyone turns their back." Malcolm plugged it into his laptop. A video appeared. It was footage of a secret meeting from 7 years ago, showing Felix, Charlotte, and a U.S. senator. The content, a discussion on how to manufacture a multicultural face in the investment world to manipulate the stock market and media perception. After the wave of fabricated scandals broke out, Malcolm suddenly disappeared from the public eye. No statements, no posts, no reactions. The media began to speculate. Is Malcolm Reed about to be exposed, hero or accomplice, while everyone assumed Malcolm had given up? In a discreet room in Brooklyn, lights flickered across the walls. Malcolm sat with 4 others, a black hacker, a freelance journalist, a human rights lawyer, and a former employee fired by Charlotte launching a large-scale campaign. We're not just confronting Felix, we're confronting a system that hasn't been questioned in far too long. Malcolm released the unedited video from 7 years ago, showing Felix, Charlotte, and a senior U.S. senator discussing how to build multi-ethnic front companies to profit from racial equity policies. The video wasn't aired on mainstream media, but exclusively released through an independent platform. Accompanied by Malcolm's own commentary, "I once believed I was chosen for my talent, but in truth, I was just a decorative piece in their strategy." The video surpassed 10 million views in 4 hours. The online community exploded. People who once doubted him began to come back. Angry now for having been manipulated, Lawrence Denton, now a loyal ally, submitted to the court a dossier of Orion Global Fund's black records documents detailing political bribery, anonymous funding of laws forcing minority laborers into unjust contracts, and most damning, falsified financial reports to cover up foreign government stakes. The Department of Justice could no longer stay silent. A federal investigation was officially launched into Felix Warner and the entire Orion executive board. But Malcolm didn't just want to strike back. He wanted to break the entire game board. He allied with Black, Latina, Asian, and progressive white CEOs, forming a new organization called Vox EQ, Voice for Equity and Quality. On the day Vox EQ launched, Malcolm stepped onto the stage, not in a designer suit, but in a simple black t-shirt, holding a microphone. We don't need more decorations in the investment world. We need voices. We need real equality not through PR campaigns, but through power, resources, and the law. Applause rippled through the room. But among the crowd, Felix Warner sat in the second row, his eyes burning with rage at being exposed to the world. Felix stood, alone, no microphone, but his voice rang out clearly. "Don't be so quick to applaud a man who once lived off my money. Malcolm Reed, who are you? You, if I hadn't chosen you as the friendly face all those years ago, you were part of the system too. Now you turn your back, build a statue of yourself, and expect us to kneel." The room fell silent. A powerful white man, once idolized, was now directly confronting Malcolm in front of everyone. Malcolm didn't flinch. He stepped down from the stage and walked straight to Felix. "You're right. I once owed you. But I never signed any deal to sell my soul for a seat at the table. I didn't know what you were doing behind the scenes. And now I stand in front of you. Not to humiliate, but to prove black men like me can win without bowing, without hate." Felix's voice dropped, bitter and sharp. "You think you've won? No one wins in this game. You just tore down an entire financial system over your personal feelings." Malcolm turned back to the room, his voice steady, deep, but carrying. "I'm not tearing down the system, I'm rebuilding it. If a system only functions when one race stays silent, then that system must collapse. I don't need anyone to kneel, but I want black people, Asian Americans, Latinx, to sit at the table, deciding where we go. Not knocking on the door asking for a seat. Thunderous applause, not the polite, obligatory kind, but the kind that rises from the hearts of hundreds. The sound of hands colliding like a declaration. We've waited too long to witness this moment. Some couldn't hold back tears, not only people of color, but young white attendees, Asian Americans, Latinos, those who had long stayed silent under the unspoken rule that power was never meant for them. A young woman gripped the hand of the person beside her, tears rolling down her cheeks. Finally, someone had the courage to say what we never dared to. Felix stood amid it all, alone, in a brutal kind of isolation. He turned his head to the left, where once sat renowned CEOs, financial allies, longtime partners. Only averted eyes remained. He looked right. The row was originally reserved for his communications advisors. Empty. Straight ahead, a hall full of people, but no one nodded. No more respectful laughter. Felix, a man who once shaped the entire investment world, for the first time, felt like he no longer belonged. He looked up. His eyes met the faces of a new generation. No one is afraid of him. A young black man in a worn shirt, but with eyes staring straight into power, unbowed. An Asian girl live streaming, her voice shaking but resolute. A white college student hugging his friend, eyes red from emotion. They hadn't come to ask for a chance. They had come to declare they were ready to reclaim their voice. Malcolm turned back, walked toward Felix, almost whispering, but loud enough for everyone to hear. "I don't need your forgiveness. Forgiveness is an act of compassion. I'm not here to grant or beg for anything. I just want you, for the first time in your life, to look a man like me in the eye. And understand this, I wasn't broken. Not because I'm stronger than others, but because I learned how to stand up every time I was knocked down by the very doors you closed on me." Malcolm paused, then continued, "And the generation after me won't need you to enter any room. They will walk in as people with the right to be there, not as guests granted a seat." Felix faltered. He stepped back half a pace, not from fear, but because for the first time in his life, he no longer knew who he was. The invisible power that once wrapped around him had dissolved like smoke. His face was no longer angry, no longer proud. Only one thing remained: emptiness. A man who had spent his life judging others, now stood under the gaze of a generation that saw through him. Malcolm turned back to the stage. He didn't raise his hand in victory. He simply said, gently, "From this day forward, we don't need to look for a seat that fits our background, because everyone has a place if they come with kindness, fairness, and respect for humanity." As Malcolm walked off, the lights dimmed. No more applause, no more camera flashes. No one stayed because it was trendy or expected. Only a hall remained, once a symbol of privilege, now bearing witness to the quiet collapse of outdated structures and the steadfast birth of something new. Felix still stood there, like a living statue, left behind by time. He didn't fall. He didn't run. But that stillness was the clearest proof of a defeat that needed no declaration. In that space, something deeper than victory echoed. Not cheers, not a thirst for revenge, but the solemn silence of a generation handed the torch. A generation that knows justice doesn't come from shouting, but from relentless, intelligent, courageous action. A generation that understands breaking a corrupt system is easy. Building something better is the real challenge. And Malcolm had done it. Not with vengeance, but with a vision wide enough to embrace both scars and hope. Not with the rage of the trampled, but with the dignity and wisdom of a man who refused to kneel. As the auditorium doors closed behind him, it wasn't the end. It was the beginning of a new chapter where children will grow up not learning to endure to survive, but learning to lead to change.